Let's see if I can PowerPoint karaoke this Maya tutorial. Okay, so we had gone through this last semester. This is just going to be a refresher. Um, Basically going to take you through the user interface today, remind you of a few things, show you some new things, and then on Wednesday we'll go into more in-depth tutorials. So does everyone have Maya open? I think I did. So it's recording. This time around we made sure to put the audio. Okay. So if you have any question, just interrupt me at any point. I'll probably stop after a few minutes to check out. So you have your menus and shelves at the top, and you have like transformation tools and viewport manipulation tools on the left side. On the right side, you have your attribute editor and like your layer editor and material editors and stuff like that. So let me, oh, sorry, my phone. Sorry guys. I laid out the points so that we're very fast with this. So let's start with going through the polygons and surfaces. So the first thing that you want to keep in mind is that in Maya you have this drop-down menu that sort of changes the look of your option menu. So if you're in modeling, you're gonna have modeling menus, so like mesh tools, mesh manipulation tools, mesh edit tools. If you go to region, you're gonna have more or less like animation tools, so like skeleton, skins, deform, things that you could use to animate like a human, a character, or stuff like that. We're probably not going to go in too deep on that. I think Maria might touch on it a little. And yeah, in region you also have like dynamics, like using a cloth, like what Branko was talking about. And then in animation, yeah, you have like your playback, visualize, and all that. Then you have rendering and all. So you guys can like look into that, just play around with that. We're gonna dwell on modeling today. So yeah, under the modeling you have again your mesh tools. So under the mesh menu you can create a Boolean union, a Boolean difference, can combine and separate. I'm just gonna show a quick example of that. So if you selected the two meshes and you went to mesh and you went to Boolean, you did a Boolean difference, you get a Boolean difference. So those are the kind of commands you can do under the mesh menu. The edit mesh allows you to bevel, bridge, extrude, merge, and so on and so forth. Mesh tools, connect, crease. We're going to go through some of this on Wednesday. One important menu that I want to talk about today would be a shelf here where you have curves and surfaces, and you have polygons, sculpting, region, animation, and so on. So let's start with the curves and surfaces. Does anyone have any questions so far? Nope. Okay. So like you have in Rhino where you work with poly surfaces, Maya gives you the option to do some poly surface modeling and curve knobs modeling, and you can do all of that under this tab, the curve and surfaces. So so like yeah, like you have in Rhino, you can draw a circle, a rectangle, a spline. So this would be very similar to your Rhino model practice, and you have surfaces here, or poly surfaces. So you could create a sphere, a box. In the old Maya, it would allow you to sort of click and drag and extrude to sort of like play around with the size of the box. Unfortunately, I don't know if it took that out, but I haven't quite figured out how to do that. But yeah.
In the drop down, I think it's create maybe. It's like, yeah, it's there. It's like click and drag to create primitives. I think interactive primitives. Very interactive creation.
Oh, awesome. Okay, good. So you just check that on. So that's create. Go to NURBS or polygon primitives and use the interactive creation. And so now you can, yeah, good. You can click, drag, and drag. So here, so if we wanted to create a box, you click and drag, draw the base, and then click it again and pull that up. It's like very similar to SketchUp, if anyone is familiar with SketchUp. The other option is to double click on the object you want to make, and it brings out a window that allows you to put in the specific value. So if I wanted a box of 5 units by 5 units by say 10 units, I could just type that in. Uh, okay, for some reason this doesn't have the create option. Well, a third way to do that would be to select your box and make it. And then, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, you have your attribute editor. If you select the box and you came to your attribute editor and you went to the layer, channel box slash layer editor, you can manually enter the size there. So, so let's say you wanted to move, you could enter the distance you want to move by in the X direction, Z direction, and Y direction. You could scale it up, say to and if you go back to the attribute editor, this menu is different. Sorry, I'm using Alex's computer. And I think some stuff is like mixed up. Do you know where it is, Alex? So it usually has the where you can enter. It's usually underneath this, and you can enter the specific size of the box. Okay. Sorry, I apologize for that, guys. We will show you guys on Wednesday. Yeah. Okay, I hope I don't run into any more hiccups. Okay, so let's go to polygons. So the difference between your polygon and your surfaces would be, again, your surface is similar to Rhino modeling, and your polygons are mesh modeling, which basically is what Maya operates with best. And if you're modeling with meshes in Maya, you can basically, so let's draw a box. You can basically select your box and sort of subdivide your box mesh, and that way you're able to pull and push faces on your box. So for instance, if we wanted to manipulate this box again, oh, okay, good. Mesh controls. Okay, good. Yeah. So this. I guess you don't have that option for surfaces. This was the menu I was looking for. So click the box, go to the attribute editor, and under polycube 2, which is the name of the box, and you can always change that here. You can always change that there. You can increase the width of that. You can increase the height. You can increase the depth. You can increase the subdivisions on the height and the width and the depth. We'll touch more on that on Wednesday. Um, so yeah, so that basically is the difference between your polygons and your surfaces. Your polygons are more flexible in Maya because Maya works uh, with meshes. So, and you can play around with all these other shapes. Again, just click, drag, and create. Under sculpting, this goes more into animation, creating characters and sculpting them. Rigging goes into sort of creating bones and allowing characters to be able to move and flow. Animation deals with time frames and animating. I think there is an animation part of the Maya series. So yeah, we can touch a little on that. Rendering, you can set your light, your materials, and so on and so forth. So let's look at the transform tab. You have your select, you have your lasso select, like you have in Photoshop. You have your paint selection tool, you have your move tool, you have your rotate tool, and you have your scale tool. And then there's this little icon here that is the last tool you used. So it's like a memory thing. The last tool I used was a polygonal cube tool, and so that automatically appears here. But if you are used to using shortkeys and you want to navigate those with shortkeys, you can easily just go from Q and type all the way right. So Q would be your select tool, W would be your move tool, E would be your rotate tool, R would be your scale tool, and T would be your last used tool. Does anyone have a question? Okay, so again, with your move, you can move along the x-axis or the z-axis or y-axis. And in order to know what axis you're moving along, there is this. So on the left bottom corner of the screen, there is a three-axle sort of guide. So the red is your x, the z is your blue, and the y is your yellow. And if you remember from the last class, I think it was Matt who mentioned it, or Branko, I don't remember, but someone spoke about the Y and the Z being inverted. So when you are working between Rhino and Maya, for instance, you have to take note of the fact that if you export a model from Maya to Rhino, it's going to flip your object. And there is a way to like make sure that object is oriented properly while you're exporting. We'll show you that on Wednesday. But just keep that in mind. I'm going to delete that. Another way to sort of, so if you wanted to, okay, so if you wanted to change the options for your move tool, for instance, you can double click on the tool, and sometimes you have, so for instance, I'm not sure I can simulate that here, but sometimes you have a pivot that is supposed to be in the centroid of your object, and it's maybe not in the center of your object. So you can double click on the, on the tool you're using, and you can reset the pivot. You can orient the pivot to the wall. You can sort of manipulate your the orientation of your tool in relation to the model space by double clicking that and bringing out that option. So now let's walk through some of these options here. First of all, if you, yeah, how am I what?
So alt and then
Yep,
I think it's
Alt and your left click. That should have been the first thing I mentioned. My bad. I basically gave you the bicycle without teaching you how to apply brakes. So yeah, Alt key and your left click and your Alt and middle key, middle axle, sorry, would allow you to pan, and the Alt and the right would allow you to dolly your camera. Any other question? Okay. I'll show you how to change between viewports later. So if you wanted to turn off the grid, for instance, you could just use that little icon up there. And if you turn that off, the grid goes away. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not, so depending on what you want. There is the option for viewing your object in specific shades. So if you wanted to view in wireframe, that would be the first. So you just use that button there. It gives you a wireframe view. A smooth and shaded would be the second. If you had material already sort of mapped on your object, you can use the third one to turn materials on the object. And then there's a wireframe unshaded. And basically what the wireframe unshaded is just your shaded object with like an edge line. So that's what you'd call edge. I think it's an edged view in Rhino or something. Yeah, and so that's basically, and yeah, and there's textured. So your textured would be not just the diffuse bump, but like not just the color of your material if you apply the material, but like the texture of your material. So if you, for instance, applied a wood material on this object, you would be able to see the wood texture mapped onto it. Okay, the last thing that I want to show, well, second to the last thing actually. So second to the last thing, if you wanted to switch from your perspective view to your front view, side view, all you need to do is press the space bar. And when you press the space bar, you would notice that there is this really light gray outline on the active view. Now, if you clicked in a new view, this is my top view that's written there. If you clicked on the top view, that line appears on the top view. That means the top view is the active view. And if you press spacebar, it takes you to that view. So spacebar, spacebar. Any question? Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes. To move it to the origin. So if you wanted to move it to the origin, you can select it, and that's if you have that option. Select the shape, go to polycube under your attribute editor, and you would see the name of your object. In my case, it's polycube history. So you'd see the transformation there, and you can just type in 0, 0, and oh, sorry, no. That's yeah, sorry. Let's say 50. That would be under your channel box and layer editor, and you can translate it. So you translate it with 0, 0, and 0, and that takes it to like your home. Does that work for you? No? I can have a look at it. Yeah. Does any other person have the same issue? Okay. Is there any other question? All right. Let's make a new box. So the last thing I want to show is what you call your modeling kit. And there is this icon on the top right corner of your screen. It looks like a house or like a box with a hammer on it. And if you clicked on that, it brings out a modeling kit. And since we're going to be showing you some modeling in Maya, this is very important because this allows you sort of pick methods of modeling. So in Maya you could model, because it's a mesh, you could sort of manipulate your object and deform it using the vertices of the mesh, using the edge, or using the face. And what a vertex means is you have 8 corners on the box. So like that corner, 1, 2, 3, where 3 edges meet. between two or more edges, or at the end of one curve, you'd have a point. In this case, when you have a polygon like this, between two edges or three edges, you'd have a vertex. So that's the point where those edges meet. So if I, so yeah, so under the kit, you have the solid, like just the object transformation. You have the vertex, you have the edge, and you have the face. And if I selected the vertex, then it would show me those points, and now I can select those points and use any of my transformation tools to transform them. So I could move that point up and down, however. If you switch to an edge mode, you can select the edge and move the edge. If you switch to a face mode, you can select the face and move the faces in and out. This is like really nice because it makes modeling so easy. I think that's one thing Maya is really good for, like just very easy modeling techniques.
Say, just a quick question for them. What did I refer to? How did I refer to this in my talk? No? Topological editing. You're accessing the topology of the geometry, a surface, an edge, or a point. Just want to make sure you pay attention to the sorts of things I said. So this is, as Jay said, this is incredibly powerful. The fact that you can actually access the different levels of topology. This is now becoming a standard feature in most modeling programs, but that was not the case. So if it doesn't have topological editing, it's not good. So it's good.
Okay, so I'm just going to show you a very quick example of what you can do with that, just to buttress Branko's point. So to show you how powerful it is in a sense. So if I selected the box, and you don't need to follow, like we're going to go over this later on. And I went to my attribute editor and I say put some, okay, let's make a new box. Actually, no, let's use a cone. Okay, so I have a cone here, and I went to my attribute editor, and I went to polycone, and I increased my subdivisions, and I don't need that. So what I can do with this kit is, say for instance, I can turn on the vertices, I can take all of those vertices, and I can move them down. Okay, let's take this one and move that up, and let's rotate that a little. I don't know what that is, don't ask me. It looks cool though. Let's select that, and let's scale that. Okay, I like that. Yeah, maybe, yeah. Or a hat. One of those like very scary characters. I don't know. I don't follow this. It's like a elf or something like that. You can make it green, but yeah, whatever. Okay, and yeah, I could take the edge and move that, whatever. Just like mess around with it. Now this looks really rigid and very geometric, and another hotkey that you can get used to is your number 1, 2, 3, 4, and that allows you to switch. So 1 allows you to switch between 1, 2, 3, 4 allows you to switch between a rigid display, a smoothing display, and there's something else. We'll look at it. So 1 would be this, and if I used 2, 2 gives me sort of the edge of the rigid display and then a smoothing one underneath. And if I use 3, it gives me the smoothing stuff. And this looks way cooler when it's smoothened. It could be a building from ideas. So that's that about the modeling kit for now. Does anyone have any question? Yeah?
If you press that hotkey, If you have more than that object in your window, will it change
everything. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So if I had and I don't know.
Or would you have to have them all selected?
No, you don't even have to have anything selected.
Okay.
So if I use the 3, it just converts everything, and if I press 1, actually wait a minute, when I use the selection here, okay, so yeah, you have to have them selected. Yeah, you have to have it selected. So select that, press 1, select that, press 1, and that's what you get. The last thing I want to show, I know I said that for this, but I actually just have one more thing. And this I think is very important. It's how to set up an autosave, and I think you guys know how important that is. And how to set up an incremental save. So for autosave, you can go to your Windows, go to settings and preferences, go to preferences, and under preferences you would see files and projects. So under your files and projects, you can enable your autosave. You can set how many minutes interval you want between each autosave. You don't want it to save too often, and you don't want it to save with so much time in between, because you want just a good balance. I think 10 minutes is good. Whatever works for you, you can put that there. Another thing, just while we're here, is undo. Now, Maya automatically limits the size of your undo. It limits it to 50. And in that case, if you had done something like some 2 hours ago and like you really need that thing back, you might not be able to retrieve it. So you want to make that infinite so that you can undo till, I don't know, basically when you started using Maya. Question? Yeah.
Your auto saving, will you lose when it saves? Will you lose your undo? Or can you keep undoing even if it's been auto?
I guess you would lose your undo.
Okay.
I mean, like you won't be able to undo past the save, right? If you open a new file.
Right.
And that applies to any software too. Yeah, that's a good question. Any other one? Someone else had their hands up here.
For that hotkey 1, 2, 3, 4, where can I see those hotkeys are, like where do we want to modify?
If you want to what?
Like the hotkey 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Where do we see important things?
Oh, like you can just okay, I think I'm done here. So like if you selected the object, like just type 2 and 3, 1, like you can see it on the screen. Is that your question?
Yeah, like what's the name of those?
Oh, like the icon?
Yeah.
Actually I don't know that. I don't know. I'll look into that. I don't, yeah.
You should learn how to use the help file. Like there's a help pull down menu. So if you bring that up, just search for keywords, and then we'll get some additional information about various features.
Yeah, you could explore that. You could also just Google it. Yeah, so the other thing was incremental save. So if you went to your file and you went to save scene and you click that little box beside it, it gives you the option to turn on incremental save. Now, in the case where, going back to the question that I had earlier about undoing past like what you have saved, this might be one good way to be able to do that, because if you have incremental saves and your latest version, like your latest backed up version, is far from what you want to work with, you can check your incremental saves and you might be able to find some version that is around where your file wants to be. So you can limit the incremental saves to whatever value works for you, and then you just save scene. Sorry, not save scene. Yeah, save it and close. So incremental save, that save and close. And that would conclude the tutorial for this morning. Does anyone have any question? Yeah.
When you make a save scene, just saving like everything in a file, or just what you're seeing, like saving before it?
No, it's saving your file, like saving your project. So there is another way to sort of save. When you say save everything, because Maya it's a modeling tool, animation tool, then like it does a lot of things. Usually when you have a project, like if you're going to be animating stuff and you're going to be modeling stuff for a specific project, you want to create a project scene, like a project folder that has both your scene, your file, your animation, export, your renderings, everything. If you prepare that, it would save everything inside that folder and you'd have to browse for it. We're not really going too deep into animation or anything, so that's why I didn't touch on that. Yeah.
So is it saving a brand new file every time that you enable autosave, or is it just saving, or can you choose?
So the way that would work would be it would save your let's see. So let's say my file name is Autodesk Maya 2017. In your backup folder, it would be Autodesk Maya 2017 underscore backup with like a date and a number, file number. So like your file number would go from 001 to 002 to like 20 or stuff like that. Yeah, does that answer your question? Okay. Any other question or anything else you're hoping to see?
I would just add as a general rule, like, say certain milestones in your work. So it's like if you've done work to your model, let's say for 2 hours, and you would like to save that in case you need to go back to it. Like give it a name, version number, and develop your own naming scheme. So do not just rely on the autosave, but autosave just in case things crash, as they will, and you need to kind of recover your file. So don't rely on autosave to keep the history of your work. Make sure you keep the history of your work by developing some kind of clever versioning name. So that's why Matt and I are preaching that. Develop your own naming scheme for the files and versions. You can go back and look at the history of your
Yeah. So on Wednesday, we're going to show you how to import your model, reduce the polygons, manipulate the model, and so on and so forth.
And use this time to learn about Maya. So go into the
Yes,
program,
please.
check out the help files. Matt and I have provided links to Maya books.
Do I just stop?
Electronically available through the library. So